All right, folks. It looks like I am, in fact, live. That is right. I am living and breathing before you here on the camera. I am Dash V, the host of Retro Reload. With me today, I got no one, nobody. Look down there in the little thing. There's no where the people normally are. There's no people. There's no people there. So it's just me and you folks in the chat. So feel free to throw out your questions, your commentary, that kind of thing in the chat. I'll be sure to cherry pick some of that and share it with the rest of the audience here. I want to kick things off by kind of going through some of the games that I've been playing lately because I've been offline for quite a bit. I would like to say that I've been gaming that entire time. Not so much. I've been adulting. There's been a lot of stuff going on in my life lately. A lot of stuff. I wish I could even say that it was good stuff. Some of it's good stuff. Lots of good stuff, exciting stuff, but lots of just meh adult stuff too. But there's been some amazing things going on while I've been out in the gaming world. So I want to kind of catch us up on that. So we'll be talking about on this episode, I'll be talking about the Bowserette topic. If you haven't heard about that, I will fill you in a little bit more shortly. We're also going to be talking about the games that I'm playing currently, which I already kind of told you about. And we're also going to be talking about the Polymega and the PlayStation Classic. So I'll also be giving you a little bit on my take on Nintendo Switch Online, which I am now a subscriber to. A bit about what motivated me to do that and what I think about the service so far. And we'll see where we go. Whatever else you folks bring up in the chat. At the real Donald Trump says, gonna make video gaming great again. Or maybe I just made that person up. They maybe they're not even in the chat. So one of the games I've been playing is Detroit Become Human. I have been enjoying the hell out of this game. This is the alternate cover. The cover is actually reversible, so I kind of like being able to see all of my folks, all my folks there. I like all the main characters. So I've yet to get the mega happy ending in this game. The spoiler alert, the only endings I got is I got one ending where everybody died. The little girl, Marcus, Connor, everybody died. And then I got another one where I was able to save Marcus, Connor, and Kara, but the little girl still died. So I have yet to get a mega happy ending that I am totally happy with. So I'm gonna keep playing the game and see where I end up. So, but really enjoying it. The graphics are very, very well done, especially on the PlayStation Pro. This game looks amazing on the PlayStation Pro. And the acting itself is terrific. So highly recommend this game. Detroit Become Human. On the Atari Lynx, sometimes before I go to bed, I like to get in a little bit of gaming. And on the Atari Lynx, I've been playing APB, which is one of the few console ports. Hey, Sonia, thanks for joining us today. I see you there in the chat. How you doing? So long time no see, indeed. What are you up to, Sonia? What games are you playing lately? What's in your playlist? I'm playing APB. This is a really good game. A really solid port of the arcade game here on the Atari Lynx. The graphics look pretty good. The digitized sound from the arcades made it in. It's really a fun game. The controls take a little bit of getting used to because steering wheel to D-pad, but I gotta say, overall, I like it actually better than there was a version of this that was made for the Midway Arcade Treasures, and that one is really difficult to play. You can do it after a while. You kind of get the hang of it with the thumbstick and everything. But then there's a terrible version for iOS. I got it, I played it, and I really couldn't. I just wasn't feeling it on iOS. The game is definitely not made to play on a phone. But on the Atari Lynx, feels right at home. The only thing that bummed me out is missing from the Atari Lynx version is on the arcade version and the Midway Arcade Treasures versions of it, because it is the arcade version. They have the option where if you capture certain crooks, you get to choke a confession out of them, and it's kind of like a mini game. Like you slam the buttons on the arcade as as much as you can. You just kind of like mash the buttons, and if you mash the buttons well enough, then you can choke a confession out of the person that you've arrested, and your boss is walking down a set of steps in the foreground, and the deal is he can't catch you choking the suspect, or have you not get a confession out of the suspect. So you have to do it before your boss gets to the bottom of the stairs. So pretty fun game. Only way you're going to play it, and only real enjoyable way you're going to play it in a portable format. Oh, hey, look, there I am. That's kind of neat. So I'm on the Atari Lynx. Woo! And it looks like I'm flipping people off. I'm not flipping you off. I promise. I promise. Oh, what that was maybe a little bit. I don't know. So yeah, playing some APB on the Atari Lynx and enjoying that. Yes, I actually bought the game. I bought the game twice. I bought it in cart only, and then it was so affordable to get. Most Atari Lynx games you can still get complete in the shrink wrap pretty affordably, even on eBay. So I went ahead and got it because it's one of my favorites since I was a kid. Sonia says it's not a game about Nintendo Switch, but she bought Cuphead. Ah, cool. So how far have you gotten in Cuphead? I really enjoy that game. I have a Cuphead shirt. I'm not wearing it tonight, but Cuphead on the Xbox One looks amazing, plays amazing. It's hard as nails. It's really a difficult game. It's like Mega Man, 1 and 2 level hard. So, yeah, it's a good game. I like it. Not currently playing that though, but Sonia, you should definitely enjoy that. I've been playing on the Nintendo Switch since you brought it up, Sonia. I've been playing Shantae Half Genie Hero, and in fact, I actually played it and beat it this weekend. So I think it said I put something like 8 hours into it, 9 hours total. Not all this weekend. I played a little bit, a week ago. Played a little bit this weekend. But yeah, really enjoyed it. If you've played the other Shantae games for the PS Vita, the Wii, the Wii U, or I'm sorry, not the Wii, the Wii U, the Wii U, or if you played it on PlayStation 4, really solid Metroidvania platform game. Shantae uses her hair there kind of as a whip. And instead of fighting vampires, she's fighting Risky Boots, and she's fighting she doesn't fight Roddy Tops in this one. Roddy Tops is more of like a cameo appearance, but in previous games she fought Roddy Tops. And there's the Ammo Baron and quite a few. All of the old gang is here, plus the addition of a couple new ones. So you won't be disappointed. Boatload of content in the Ultimate Edition. Ultimate Edition contains all of the DLC, including DLC that wasn't done when this game was finished. So a couple modes that if you've already played this and beat it, you might not be aware have been added. There's a Jammies mode, which I have not played yet, but Shantae in her PJs, instead of her attacking with her hair, she's got a pillow, and she kind of like bops people with pillows. She can sleep and float around on a cloud. So a couple different gameplay elements there. Also, is the ability in the normal mode of the game. You can trade one of the dances now for a Sophia transformation. That's right, Sophia from Blaster Master. You can transform into the Sophia 3 tank, and it was pretty good. It was a kind of a fun spin. In fact, there's one or two bosses. I'm going to do a proper review in a follow-up video, and I captured some footage and everything. But one of the bosses I've actually found to be much easier to beat in the Sophia tank because you can shoot projectiles and you can aim up and left and right just like you can in Blaster Master itself. So really enjoying Shantae. I beat the main story mode, got 100%. Those of you that might be struggling with it, like I was, I got to 97 and then I got to 99 and I couldn't figure out what I missed, even though everything on the stage select screen was telling me I got everything. You got to buy everything in the shop, and you have to trade at least once. Trade for the dances, do the dance, and then even if you do the dance and then trade back to something else that you want instead, you have to at least have the dances all in your inventory at least once, and have used them at least once in order to get 100%. So I was able to get 100% completion. Woo! So it wasn't impossible. An old guy like me can still do it. So the graphics were amazing. The gameplay was solid, and there's a whole bunch of other modes. So now I'm playing it as Risky Boots, and it's a completely, you go through a lot of the same levels, but you've got different abilities which can change the way that you can kind of play through the level. You can't play through it the same way you could as Shantae. So the story is a bit different. So it's definitely worth playing. High replay value on this title is what I'm saying. So definitely get it. So you don't have a Nintendo Switch yet, Sonia? That is okay. That is okay. I've been saying many, many times, folks that have been watching the show for a while, you know that I was, pre-order, right? Day zero purchase of the Nintendo Switch. I had some issues with my Switch. Still do, actually. I have the controller issues. I could have sent my Switch in and got it repaired. The problem was by the time I found out I had controller issues, I was 80% done beating Breath of the Wild. And at the time, you can't back up. Anybody that doesn't know, you can't back up your saves to a memory card. You can put games on your memory card and play games off the memory card. I'm talking about the SD that goes in the back here. But you cannot save your actual save games, your progress to an SD card. So there's no way to back them up until Nintendo Switch Online. So Nintendo Switch Online, which just launched a couple weeks ago, finally adds an ability for you to actually go in and add your you can auto enable uploads, or you can enable auto uploads for your saves so that your games will automatically sync with the cloud and you can download them from the cloud. So if your Switch gets broken or needs to be replaced or something like that, you're able to preserve your saves. It does work in game. There's only been 2 games it didn't work with so far, out of the 30 or 40 games that I have on this. One of them was Fortnite, and I don't remember what the other one was off the top of my head, but all the big games worked. Shantae, it worked with Cloud Save. Blaster Master Zero worked. Lots of games. Breath of the Wild certainly worked. So most games are going to work with it. And the bummer is, now that I was able to back up all my saves, the warranty has expired. So I'm just going to end up having to buy new Joy-Cons for that. They don't stay synced with the console. But if I have them connected, I'm fine. I don't have any issues. If I use them in the controller remotely, they forget about it. It's very hit and miss. But yeah, that was Nintendo offered to replace the whole unit. I didn't want to lose my progress, so I took a pass on it. Still think I made the right call. Nintendo Switch Online, my first impressions, don't pay the monthly fee. Monthly fee ends up being over $100 for the year, and it's really not, it's not necessary. Well, almost $100, and it's just not necessary. Even quarterly is still overpriced. I think the right price is $20 for the year. $20 for the year, you're paying roughly $2 to $3 a month to basically be able to back up your games in the cloud in the event that your Switch goes down. I think that that's totally worth it. Now, the fact that you also get to play a collection of NES classic games, that's kind of icing on the cake. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't really too thrilled with the selection. Super Mario 3, Super Mario 2. One, I've already got them for my original NES in cartridge form, and they play just fine. 2, I've got an NES Classic and NES Mini, right? I already have those games already. 3, before I even had them on the NES Classic, I had them on the Wii U and on the Wii. So not really, I mean, okay, cool. It's portable again, I guess, but so was it when it was on the 3DS. So that said, I did play some River City Ransom. Not only did I play it, I beat it. I played it for 2 days straight and beat the game. I'd popped the game in before because I had that on physical as well. I popped it in long enough to make sure the game was working, saw that there was going to be some grinding and RPG elements to it. And I was like, I don't really have the time for this right now. That was like 3-4 years ago. But this time, I had some time this weekend, sat down, played it, loved it, really, really loved it. I think partly because I still miss Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. So, which was delisted a long time ago. But so love that game, Scott Pilgrim. Clearly a love letter to River City Ransom. River City Ransom on Switch Online played pretty well. The loading time was instant. The sound seemed spot on to me for Nintendo sounds. The graphics looked a bit better than Nintendo graphics. There wasn't as much flicker and breakup as I would expect from a Nintendo game. So I'm assuming that they cleaned it up a little bit. I play it with the CRT filter on here, which on this screen you can barely even tell that it's on. But it doesn't detract from the image quality, I guess is my point. So honestly, none of the other games in the collection so far really thrill me. But I gotta say, finally with the ability to do cloud save, finally with an ability to do some kind of virtual console. Um, I've been saying numerous times since the launch, mid to end 2018, this is gonna be a great console. Here we are, mid to end 2018. The Switch is a great console. It's got a really good lineup. There's lots of games, both from the back catalog that have been ported over, as well as new games that are coming out. There's lots of games that are cross-platform games, like Shantae Half Genie Hero, that do an absolutely stand-up job, on the Switch. Other games like Sonic Mania, stand-up job. So you're not going to get a game like Detroit Become Human, but there's definitely things to be had. If you've got a Switch and you're not enjoying it yet, I can't really blame the console anymore. There's plenty of good games coming out. Uh, so Pinball FX, Zen Studios announced that Pinball FX, starting October 8th, is actually going to be launching Williams tables on the Switch and various other consoles, Xbox One, PlayStation 4. What's really exciting is you're going to be able to play games like Medieval Madness and things like that on the Switch. Finally, Pinball Arcade almost gave it to us, and then their license ran out. So, but it's really exciting to see that those games found another home. Personally, I think that a lot of the things I see Zen talking about doing with these games, these tables, had me really excited. Pinball Arcade had an opportunity with these licenses and with these games to really do something amazing. I think that they kind of got drowned by licensing costs. And I'm not going to blame them for that because I don't know. I know there was a lot of things they had to do with crowdfunding, and there was a lot of stuff that they tried to do in terms of multi-platform, and they had issues with their publisher on Xbox for a long time. What I can say is Zen has had none of those problems. Zen has been solid in terms of releases, in terms of patches, in terms of updates, uh, and I see them bringing that to the table with no pun intended. I see them bringing that with these new tables. So I am super excited that the Williams tables found a home on Zen. And Zen also announced last week there's going to be two different modes that you can play these tables in. There's going to be classic mode where they have it dialed in about as arcade, accurate to the real table as they can get in a physical simulation. But then they're also going to have another mode where it kind of is like a souped up, like deluxe edition mode. Like for example, um, with the Medieval Madness table, you'll actually the dragon that sits on top of the ramp actually moves and breathes fire and all this stuff. So it's really kind of neat to see them both having a faithful representation and a reimagining of the table. It'll be interesting to see what the pricing looks like for these tables. It actually looks like it could be potentially more affordable than they were from Pinball Arcade. So maybe because Zen's been around longer, maybe because Zen has, more weight, more experience. Maybe they're able to negotiate a better deal, or maybe they're just able to be that much more efficient. So I appreciate Pinball Arcade being the ones that made it so that I think it was 7 years ago, 7 years ago, I was able to play Attack from Mars on my cell phone. That's amazing. Props to Pinball Arcade. But over the last, couple years, I bought their PlayStation 3 version of Pinball Arcade. Never was able to play it. The lag was just so horrible. I was never able to play it. I think by the time they fixed it, I was already on PS4. I have the tables on PS4, never really got around to sitting down and playing them now that I have the actual table. So in the time it took them to fix the physics, I actually bought the table. So the real table. Um, so honestly, and I hear there's no end to the troubles with Pinball Arcade on the Xbox One platform. So they're still struggling there. I hope that they're able to do better with Stern and things like that. That they don't lose those licenses. That they're able to up the quality of what they're doing and keep the premium tables kind of coming onto the platform. But I'm super excited to see Bally and Williams tables hitting Zen. I think it's going to be a match made in heaven. So I can hardly wait for that. So that's a bit of what I'm playing, and we've already gotten into my opinions. So, folks, feel free to share your opinion on any of those games that I shared in the chat, or your opinions on Nintendo Switch Online. So I'm one man, I'm one opinion. So, but as promised, I want to talk a bit about the PlayStation Classic. Sony, for those of you who've been living under a rock for the last, or don't live on video games 24/7, Nintendo has, done the Classic and the SNES Classic. Sega's following suit with a Genesis Mini. PlayStation, Sony's thrown down, and there's a PlayStation Classic that's coming out, and it's a itty bitty baby PlayStation. It's kind of neat. It doesn't have the disc, and it isn't clear yet whether this is like if they took their hardware, because we know that they made different iterations of the hardware, including a really small one. I'll grab it. Everybody remembers this little beauty, right? You remember this guy? So this is with the screen attachment on it. Without the screen attachment, it just looks like. Can I take this off? No, it's screwed on in the back there. See, I screwed it on, so I can't just take it right off. But normally it's without this top piece. It's just this bottom piece, so that kind of fits in the palm of your hand. So a little bit smaller than this, right? Maybe about like this big, right? Is the new PlayStation Classic, and I don't know. I know a lot of folks are saying it's going to be quality, it's Sony, etc. I hope that that's right. I mean, we do know Sega for a while was looking to have At Games make their new, Genesis Mini, and I got to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of these emulation only boxes. I mean, it's at that point you're basically getting a marked up RetroPie. Now, what is going to be nice, I think, about the PlayStation sanctioned one is that hopefully some of the games that they're announcing, Final Fantasy VII and things like that, and more to be announced later, they look pretty compelling for somebody that hasn't played it. Now, what remains to be seen is do they have any kind of filtering? Because as far as I remember, Final Fantasy VII looks awful on an HD TV without any kind of filtering. If you're playing it through an emulator or something like on your laptop or Raspberry Pi, the first thing you want to do for those old PS1 games is apply filtering. So unless they have some form of built-in filtering in this device, I'm nervous that a lot of these games aren't going to look as great on our modern HD TVs as people are remembering them. So the other thing too is if it's emulation, I'm just not a fan of the emulation. Now, if Sony's curating the games, one would expect that they're going to make sure that the games work without any issues, that the loading will be good and that the graphics will render properly, the sound will be correct, and the frame rate will be good. I'm kind of hoping, Sonia, you enjoy lunch. She says she's in Korea and it is 12 noon. Sonia, no need to apologize. I am so glad that you tuned in. Enjoy your lunch. So, and enjoy Cuphead. Very difficult game. Yeah, with the PlayStation Classic, if it's emulation, I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping that they did, if they could figure out back then how to make the circuit board this small, and then later they figured out how to make it even smaller and embed it onto into the PlayStation 3 on a chip originally. And then, uh, I'm hopeful that that means that there's going to be some kind of hardware based playback. I understand that it's not going to have a disk system, so they'll be loading the games off of memory somehow, and they'll have to have some kind of menu system with operating system and everything. I'm fine with that. I just don't want to see it be like some kind of, you know, emulator with cruddy frame skip and glitchy gameplay and all that. Like the PlayStation 1 games do deserve better than that. I do hope that there's some kind of filtering that they've built in, hopefully some hardware level filtering so it doesn't cause lag. So will there be HDMI lag? We don't know. Will it be emulation? We don't know yet. So until I hear back on those things, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think that Sony's going to throw out garbage. But at the same time, I'm not really, I don't have a lot of details to go on. I have a picture of the system and a game list. So I'm going to hold out a little bit longer on that one. I'm not going to pre-order. The other thing is Polymega. Polymega was something that last show folks asked me to kind of comment on, and I gave a little bit of commentary on it toward the end, but not a lot. I was kind of cagey about it. And part of that was because I wanted to have a little bit more time to actually formulate my opinion. People's interest in it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Not that they were interested, but just that they were interested in my opinion and whether or not I was interested in it. So, one of the things that I like about the Polymega is I like the proposed expandability, right? I like that it can play CD games as well as cartridge games. I like that it can reuse original controllers and things like that. It makes sense to me that the add-ons are based on modules that you can kind of plug in. So you only pay for the connectors and that you want, the cartridge connectors and the controller connectors that actually match up with the systems that you want to play. That makes a lot of sense. What I don't really like about it is I've heard this so many times before. It'll play anything, it can do anything, etc. Folks, at the end of the day, everything I'm reading says that the Polymega is an emulator box. And so the skeptical part of me says, okay, the emulation quality and compatibility is going to be limited by either A, what they can develop on their own, or B, the best quality emulators they can get with licenses that allow them to just take the code and deploy it on the box and ship it. We already know that Hyperkin, actually, who was one of the first to the market with the Retron 5, the Retron 5 is a spectacular console. The build quality is a little but for what it does, it's pretty friggin' amazing. The Game Genie support, the Nintendo Famicom, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, Genesis, Mega Drive. I mean, the compatibility is pretty amazing, not to mention all the different levels of Game Boy compatibility. Now, the problem is that in order to do that, they did some, sketchy stuff regarding, the emulators that they used and the licensing terms and stuff. Um, the reason I say sketchy is because they're convinced they didn't do anything wrong. They lived up to the licenses. The developers of RetroArch and some of the other emulators, systems and frameworks that they built on top of aren't as convinced. There's still to this day some ongoing debate as to whether or not their using of those software packages is in violation of the licenses. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't advise. But that's why you see things like Stella coming out on I covered in my last episode. I covered the Retron 77. Retron 77 has some differences to the Retron 5. One of those differences being it's a completely open platform. They didn't try to lock it down. You can pop in an SD card. You can load it with your own firmware. There's already, if you go to Atari Age, there's already a couple of custom firmwares. One of them's a slight tweak. Another one completely, enables the old Stella menu and everything like that. So, so this isn't TiVoed, and that was the problem that the original developers RetroArch and stuff had with the Retron 5 was that it was TiVoed. TiVoed meaning they sold you a box that they specifically put protections in place to prevent you from upgrading the box. And the developers had a real issue with that because they said, look, it's not a truly, even if you give code at this point, it's not a truly open platform because people can't just take your code, compile it, and easily put it onto the Retron 5. There might be some good reasons for that. I think if you had a box where people could put their own code on there, that had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega compatibility, people would be turning that into the world's best ROM dumper like that. I'm fully convinced. Atari, I don't think that there's people lining up to start dumping and pirating Atari games. I honestly don't. I do think that there are some people, but I don't think it's enough to where the license holders for these games are like crying a river. They don't demand the same premium as like a Mario 3 or Super Mario 2. So yeah. So but Hyperkin still made differences. T-Bone Molcd. All right, T-Bone, I need you to do me a favor. Can you phonetically spell out how you want me to say your handle in the chats? And I don't mean that as an insult, but I almost choked on my tongue trying to attempt to pronounce that. Is that short for something? So you tell me how to phonetically spell your name or sound out your name, and I will answer why some people like Bowserette. He asks in the chat, why do people like Bowserette? We'll get to that. I promise. We'll get to that. But those are my opinions on PlayStation Classic and Polymega. PlayStation Classic, I'm cautiously optimistic for. I'm hopeful that, like people think, Sony's not going to screw it up, but I still want to see the details. Emulator or hardware based, what's going on? Do we have some way to filter the graphics? T-Bone me. T-Bone me. Then how come at the end? Okay, T-Bone mulks. All right. What is it? What is a mulk? What is a mulk? Oh, I accidentally put a D and kept it. Okay. Now I just need to know what a mulks is. My son, actually, when he was a kid, when he was a toddler, true story, he used to say moats when he would pronounce milk. So I learned that moats, M-O-A-T-S, is the way that a toddler could say milk. Mulch. Okay. T-bone mulch. Okay. I'm still no closer to understanding how that got. At some point, you have to tell me the story. That makes sense. Okay. Mulk is short for my last name. Okay. So T-Bone is kind of like your internet name, and then Mulk is short for like your actual real name. That's pretty cool. I understand that. Dash V is actually similar, right? V is the beginning letter of my last name, and I never stop talking. So dash V is usually the command that you give a compiler or something when you want it to give you more details than you can possibly handle. So folks at work call me Dash V, and I decided to just embrace it. So that's pretty cool. So we're gonna get to in just one second. Why what the deal is with Bowserette. What is she? Where'd she come from? And how do people feel about it? How do I feel about it? But I want to end you for the Polymega thing. I'm really skeptical about the Polymega. I'm cautiously optimistic about the PlayStation Classic. I'm really skeptical about the Polymega, and I don't mean anything against the people that are working on it. I don't have any information that it's for sure going to be a flop or not going to happen or whatever. I've just seen way too many, crowd-funded, early announced, can do everything consoles that set the ambition and expectation level way up here, and then for logistical reasons they just can't do it. Either they're not able to collect the money, or there's sketchiness surrounding whether or not they're legally allowed to do what they're trying to do, whether or not they're legally allowed to do the emulation, or whether or not the emulator code that they got they're allowed to legally use. So, or they use emulators that they're legally allowed to use, but they're so old because it's before people knew, hey, if you do with this license, somebody can just take your code and sell a product, that the emulation ends up being so old and so behind the times that it just can't keep up compatibility wise or performance wise. Interesting to note, um, the Retron 77 right now is actually not being held back by licensing. The developer is actually kind of psyched that there's a console that's an open console that can run Stella. Well, I say psyched, maybe that's a little bit overly generous. He's fine with it, to the point where he's even done a patch or two to help work around some of the shortcomings with the console so that people can have an affordable way, reliable way to enjoy their Atari games. So there's a lot more good faith going on between the Stella development community and Hyperkin than say the Retron 5 and the RetroArch community. The biggest thing holding it back is that the Retron 77 uses a Mali chipset, which the only hardware accelerated graphics support that this has is through a alternative branch of the Linux kernel. And so you'd actually have to download the Linux kernel and those drivers separately, compile it, and install. Hyperkin just didn't do the work. So they're running Stella 3 instead of Stella 5, which is the latest. Stella 5, the biggest difference is hardware acceleration. So things like screen tearing, things like advanced filtering, things like being able to play at 1080p instead of 720p would all be possible if somebody got ambitious enough to port Stella 5 to this and update the underlying Linux OS to one that supports directly the hardware features of this box. Hyperkin themselves didn't quite take it that far. They took the earlier branch, Stella 3, which has close but not the same compatibility. If it's a commercial game, it's probably going to play. If it's a homebrew game, hit or miss. There's certain chips that came out that the older Stella on out of the box on this just doesn't support. So Polymega could end up being the same deal. It could be some old emulator, either due to licensing reasons or due to just their own abilities and ambitions reason. And I've just seen too many emulator consoles that didn't either never came to existence or didn't live up to the hype. So Polymega, you got to show me hardware, and then I'll be a believer. So. All right. So, do I collect Nintendo things or know a lot about them? Well, I do actually. You'll probably notice I've got a original 8-bit NES in the background there. I've actually got another one over there. That's my backup NES in case the other one dies. I've got the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom. By the way, anything you see on display, I also have fully functional in my game room. So these are just my backup systems. Uh, so yeah, I have both versions of the Super Nintendo. I've got, you can see an extensive collection of Nintendo games back there. Some of those are games that I grew up with. So to answer your question, T-Bone, I've been actually collecting, uh, I guess you could say collecting. I never thought I was collecting when I was a kid, right? I was just asking for things for Christmas, and if I was lucky, I'd get them. So yeah, I originally started getting Nintendo games when I was about, I want to say somewhere between 12 and 15 years old. And I've been a Nintendo fan ever since. I've got the Nintendo Switch. I also have, well, probably the shorter way to put it is I have every Nintendo console and handheld except for the Virtual Boy. So I don't have every game. I only collect the games that I want to play. So for Super Nintendo, I think I got something like 12 games, or actually, now's a good time to remind you folks about VG Collect. If you have not heard of it, this is not an advertisement, but it is an endorsement. If you go to www.vgcollect.com, what's really cool is you do have to sign up for an account if you want to. You can catalog your games on there, and you can catalog them by system and all that stuff. But it doesn't cost anything. It's totally free to sign up. The forums on there are actually really great. There's some really nice, really amazing people on the forums. And one of the things that they do is they'll have different things like they'll have game challenges, like how many games can you play in the year, how many unique games can you play in the year. I think one year I got up to like 58 games I played in one year, and I actually beat like 30 or 40 of them. which was kind of amazing. So like that was about my busiest year. This year I think I played maybe like 10 different games and I've only beaten two of them, River City Ransom and Shantae. Actually that's not true. I also beat Detroit Become Human. So there's three at least. Um so T-Bone says the only Nintendo stuff he's had is Wii and Wii U, but I kind of want to switch. Wii and Wii U are really good. Wii U is definitely, I think it was a properly rated system. It was a really good system, had a really good set of games, especially given the hardware that they had to work with. The Wii U is a very underrated system. I think hang on to your Wii U. Do not get rid of it because I have a feeling that the Wii U is going to be kind of like the GameCube is starting to become now. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, oh my goodness, there are all these amazing games on the Wii U that I totally ignored. And some of those are getting ported, like all the Nintendo games, Bayonetta, um, you know, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart. All those games are getting ported back over to the Switch now. So if you don't have them for the Wii U, pick them up for the Switch. They're going to look better. But I can definitely say, there's going to be games I think that are going to be tethered, stuck on the Wii U that may never see another console. And those are going to be the games that are going to be fetching some pretty heavy prices in another, I'd say, probably 10 to 15 years. When everything old becomes new again, right? So, but if I look at vgcollect.com, according to this, so if you go to vgcollect.com, and I think you can actually, if you want to see my collection with me, you can actually go to vgcollect.com/-v. So I'm going to put this in the chat for folks there. Hopefully this lets me share the link. It does. So if you go to vgcollect.com/-v, you can see my entire collection that I've cataloged, including my arcade and pinball machines, which I'm just now starting to collect. So for Nintendo, I have 69 games. For Famicom, I have 6 Famicom games. For the Nintendo Switch, I have 13 games. So anybody that thinks I'm a hater on the Switch just because I said it took a while for them to get a good library, etc., 2018, I don't hate the Switch. I just Nintendo's making it really hard to love them lately. They seem to punish those that love them. For the Wii, I've got 35 games. For the Wii U, I've got 21 games. For the Super Nintendo, I've got 41 games. And I've got 10 Super Famicom, or 6. It says 6 here, but there's 4 that I didn't catalog. I've got 10 Super Famicom games. So yeah, I'm pretty much I guess you'd say a collector. Nintendo 64 is probably my weakest. I've only got 10 Nintendo 64 games. It wasn't my deal. The 3DS, I've got 18 games. Love the 3DS. So original Game Boy, Nintendo and original Game Boy, the original 8-bit NES and Game Boy are when I started out on. So 29 games for the Game Boy, 48 for the Game Boy Advance, and 16 for the Game Boy Color, and 14 games for the GameCube. So would I prefer a remastered GameCube, he asks, or other older consoles with newer games and better graphics? A remastered GameCube. You mean like a GameCube Classic, like a GameCube Mini, kind of like the NES Mini? We'll see what he says to there. So you got my opinions, folks, now on the Polymega and the PlayStation Classic. Make sure we cover the different topics that we said that we were going to talk about today. So I still have I believe a couple more topics that we're going to be covering here. I'm stalling on the Bowserette one because I know people are going to freak the hell out when I talk about Bowserette if they don't already know about her or him. It gets complicated. I'll explain. So All right. We talked about PlayStation Classic. We talked about Polymega. I talked about Nintendo Switch Online. Before I get to the Bowserette topic, so two things. First, T-Bone gave some extra detail. So he says, yeah, meaning a GameCube Classic, but newer software, same layout and controls though. I- I've said this I think once or twice on the show, but it's worth repeating. I would be a real fan of Nintendo, Sony, Sega. I would be a real fan of these guys releasing newer consoles that were media compatible with the older games. And I think that it would incentivize developers to start developing for those consoles again, which I think would be really, really awesome. Because one of the things that I'm noticing is that uh, the challenge right now with all the consoles being almost on equal footing, right? Like the Switch, okay, the Switch is not a PlayStation 4 and it's not an Xbox One, but Shantae looks and plays exactly the same on all three of those consoles. Same is true for games like Thimbleweed Park, etc. Sonic. Uh, um, um, my goodness, I forgot the name of the game. The new Sonic game, right? So the my point is though, there's a lot of other games too, like indie games and stuff like that. There's tons of games coming out that are starting to feel really samey, and it's really starting to feel like the console that you're on doesn't matter, which in some ways is good and in some ways is bad. Um, I miss originality, honestly. I miss the, and I feel like the more limited consoles, the more limited portables really force developers into this, how do I make something unique? Now, the downside of that is you had a lot of games that sucked. A lot of times, folks would try something and the controls just weren't quite right, or the graphics didn't really do the idea justice. But when games came out that were gems, right? Like when you played Mario 3, I mean, the things that they were able to get the Nintendo to do, the original Nintendo to do, was nothing short of mind blowing, right? So on the same machine that you have Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, right? And you're like, wow, you also have Super Mario 3. And I don't I don't get that wow factor anymore. When I play a PlayStation 4 game, I kind of expect a certain bar. And unless the game is trying to artistically go for the other thing, like Scott Pilgrim with the hyper pixelated graphics, you don't want pure 8-bit graphics on your PlayStation 4, right? So they got it, or PlayStation 3, which Scott Pilgrim was on PlayStation 3. You kind of want to see it amped up. With the original consoles, I think it would be awesome to have the original consoles come back the way that they were. To your point, T-Bone, maybe updated controller, give us better controllers, because Jeremy's not on the show today, so I can say it. The N64 controller is terrible. That's why I don't play the N64. I know some people really love the N64. That's totally fine. There's some good games on the N64. To me, the controller is painful to use. So if they're going to do something like, and the GameCube controller, not much better. Resident Evil looked amazing on the GameCube for the time, and I powered through every single one of those games. That controller was a major pain in the ass to use. It was not an enjoyable experience with the controls. And so I would love to see these things come back with better controls. I'd love to see them come back with, take the original media, but then also let them be internet connected, right? Take what we have from the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch. Let me download GameCube games, right? Let it have like a 32 gig or an SD card, right? That can be used, and let me download games from Nintendo Online and play them on what looks like the original hardware. I think that would be really cool. And if it plays the original media, there's no reason why we couldn't see developers start developing for these consoles again. That would be, I think, really, really good. So, that said, I don't mind a good remake either. So if they want to remake the game, what I don't want to see is a remake where they just simply increase the resolution, don't update the textures, right? And they just kick out the same game with like a higher frame rate and higher resolution, but everything looks blocky and blurry. Anyway, I want to see remakes more like, let me see, let me think of some good some good remakes recently. I'm gonna get a ton of shit for this, but Turtles in Time reshelled. I know that game got a ton of hate. It was out for a very short period of time. It was on the PS3 and the Xbox One, and then it got delisted. Ubisoft made it, but I thought that it was really good. The graphics looked really good. They did some gameplay updates to it that I thought really kind of helped the playability of the title. It reminded me of the old game Turtles in Time, but to me it kind of like it made it look the way I remembered it looked. But if I actually go back and play it on the arcade or in the Super Nintendo, I realize, okay, it's aged. It's still a great game, still plays great, and still looks good, but it didn't look as good as Turtles in Time reshelled. So that I thought was a really good remake of an old game. Some of these Sonic games that are coming out, like the new Sonic classic game, I thought that was a good kind of remake. They didn't just say like, "Oh, here's Sonic the Hedgehog 1 again," right? Sonic Mania. They actually said like, "Okay, it starts out like the Sonic you know and love, but now we're gonna do a whole bunch of new stuff. We're gonna add new characters. We're gonna add new zones, new graphics." Um, that's I don't mind seeing that too. Something just totally brand new. Hopefully, Spyro reignited, right? Like hopefully then that new game, the remakes look hopefully pretty good. So we'll have to see. So I'm a fan. Remakes can be done right, I think. Either way, I think as long as they respect the original material, the original game, I think that that's the key thing. You can tell when you're playing a game, whether it's in emulated form, or it's in remastered form. You can really tell if it was a cash in or if there was like true respect given to the original. Um, So, what would be really awesome too would be if we got some of those original Resident Evil games all redone in the Resident Evil 4 scheme, over the shoulder, with the more third person perspective versus fixed forced camera angles and tank controls. Resident Evil 4 was amazing. I loved actually the controls of T-Bone. Did you play Resident Evil 4 on the Wii or the Wii U with the motion controls? What did you think of it? I actually loved it. I thought that was the greatest Resident Evil I'd ever played was with the Wii motion controls, the remote and the nunchuck. Um, that's just apparently I was in the minority. Second best I thought was Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition for the PlayStation 3. Um, but with the move controls. I really enjoyed the move controls. So I'm in the minority on this, though. Um, don't know if I'm in the minority or majority on this, though. Finally, gonna rip the band-aid off on this Bowserette topic, right? So Bowserette. If you don't know what Bowserette is, first of all, if you know what Bowserette is, feel free to help out in the chat, in case I miss something or get something wrong, because I am very new to the whole Bowserette cultural phenomenon that's going on right now. But my understanding is that in the new Super Mario U that's coming out for the Switch, they're porting new Super Mario Bros. U to the Switch, and it's going to have the Luigi mode, just like the DLC that was available on the Wii U. So it's going to have all the DLC, but it's also going to have this mode where one of the Toad characters, one of the female Toad characters, if she gets a certain power up, she can turn into Peachette, and which is like a kind of a knockoff on Princess Peach. And somehow this turned into folks. They came up with these different. I'm seeing like posts now for a Goombette, like a little like what if a Goomba got a hold of that power up and turned into like a girl, like a Goomba version of Princess Peach? What would that look like? But there's also this this concept fan art basically that's exploded all over social media, where somebody pitched an idea for what if Bowser got his hands on that special power up and became Bowserette, right? Became like a female version of Bowser. Um, and turns out, she looks like a real badass biker babe hottie. Um, and so lots of folks kind of going back and forth. There's some people that are just completely foaming at the mouth and drooling over Bowserette. There's people that are like, "Oh, I can't believe it. I hate this concept. I hate everything about this." Um, there's differences of opinion as to whether what you're cheering for is like a gender bent Bowser, like Bowser right after some maybe going into the shop and having some work done and then coming out, and gender bending a bit. People are cosplaying this. Um, but then there's also just the concept of no, it's just a if there was a girl Bowser, what would a girl Bowser look like, right? Folks, since this is all fictitious, since this is all make believe, like I don't think any of those versions deserve any kind of hatred. I mean, one of the great things about gaming, right? First of all, anybody that's coming in now, when I was a kid, not everyone had games. Lots of kids did, but still not everyone did. And so if you were a gamer, um, sometimes you were a little bit weird or different from other people. And if you, and by weird or different, I mean people perceived you as being weird or different because they want to talk about sports or they want to talk about, well, basically when I was a kid, it was all like sports. They wanted to talk about sports or comic books or whatever. And you wanted to talk about video games. And if they didn't have video games, they didn't want to talk about video games. They didn't understand video games. And likely if you're playing video games, you weren't really doing, oftentimes, at least where I went to school, the folks that were doing the video games weren't the ones that were playing sports. Or if they were playing video games, the sport guys, they were playing video games about sports, right? They were playing Madden, they were playing NHL, they were playing these different games. So I was playing games that were not sports games. I had no interest in sports whatsoever. I was considered kind of weird, and I didn't really relate with a lot of folks. And so it's not a surprise to me, is my point, to see that, gamers get this idea in their head and they kind of run with it and they take it into all kinds of creative and interesting directions that maybe a bunch of the rest of us would never think of. I don't think that we should think bad of those people or hate on those people. They're having fun, right? Why do you come on the internet? Why do I do this show? Why are we in the chat? To have fun, right? So there's a lot worse things people could be doing on the internet than posting fan art of a female version of Bowser, right? There's a lot, and whether that's a lady Bowser or whether that's Bowser gender bending, like how does that hurt you? How does that harm you? How does that affect you? Um, it it really doesn't. If it's not your thing, that's totally okay, right? Like not everybody, it doesn't have to be everybody's thing, I guess, is what I'm saying. Um, let's just let folks kind of run with it. Let's let them have fun. Um, I doubt you're going to see any amount of this kind of hate or spite about the new upcoming. Just before the show, I started seeing pictures of, hey, introducing Goombette, right? Not Nintendo, but somebody fan art of a little Goomba. Like if the Goomba got the power up and there was a Goomba Peach. Personally, I think it's adorable that people love Nintendo's characters so much. My bigger fear is actually like Nintendo just coming through and like doing what Nintendo does and attacking these people saying, take down this art, you can't do this, you can't do that, that's our IP. Like Nintendo, let people have their fun. Folks on social media, let people have their fun. I don't see any problem with it. I'll admit some of these fan arts of Bowserette, she's quite the hottie, right? I got to give you that. That said, I'm happily married, and I have no, you know, other than wow, okay, she's kind of hot. I don't really have any. I I don't have any need to hate. I don't have any need to question my masculinity or anything like that. It's art. It's social media. It's kind of a parody. Folks are having fun. I say let them have their fun, right? Timon says I don't fantasize about it, but some people do. That may be true. That definitely may be true. I would say I'd rather have them fantasizing about Bowserette than fantasizing about little children. So honestly, in all honesty, so there seriously is a lot worse that could be out there than folks, you know, kind of what ifing and cosplaying as some of their favorite characters with a twist. One of the things I think that makes Bowserette, like if we look at it, what makes Bowserette like so exciting? I don't think it's just that, because not all the pictures that I've seen are like of the super hot, there's been all kinds of, there's been scary and terrifying ones, there's been super badass ones, there's been hot ones, there's been kind of cute and adorable ones. I think what really kind of lights people up, most of the people, is the fact that this is something new and unique. And I think what we're seeing is we're seeing Nintendo right now on the Switch. Remember, I like the Switch. I got 13 games for it. But something Nintendo is not doing very well on with the Switch so far in the 2 years it's been out is originality. All their AAA titles that have been coming out for the last 2 years on this console have been ports or remakes from the Wii U. Now, that's not a bad thing. They're definitive editions of those. Much better graphics, all the DLC included, good things. But my point is, I think what we're seeing is people are basically starved from Nintendo. They want to see new things. They want to see new, Mario being a plumber and getting power-ups and saving the princess has been done to death. I've seen this since I was a kid, like we were talking about T-Bone. Like since I was like 12 years old, I've been saving the princess from Bowser. Show me something new. Give me new characters. Give me new storylines, right? Give me a reason to care about collecting the new set of power-ups to finish the next storyline. Because just jumping around hitting coin blocks isn't doing it for me anymore. So I think what you're seeing is you're seeing folks show that they still have a love and a passion for Nintendo and its characters, but they really want to see new spins and new twists on these characters. I know I do too. I don't know if that new spin and that new twist is a Bowserette. I'm not opposed to it. I didn't, until I saw it today, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty, pretty neat. I thought it was an official Nintendo thing. Then I went and looked it up and found out it's this whole fan thing. There's like a cult following now. And I was kind of thinking like, why is that? Why is that? And I think that maybe this might even drive why some people are angry, right? Because we finally see something that's kind of like revolutionary. We kind of see something that's new and mold breaking in the Mario Brothers universe, and it's a fan creation. And I think that, like, for me, the only thing that really makes me bummed about it is Nintendo does not have a track record of adopting fan creations and running with it. So I think the easiest way to kill an official Bowserette is for it to explode like it has here. I don't know that Nintendo is going to be, is going to latch on to these concepts that came from the outside at risk of feeling like they owe the fans something, right? Like, do they have to go talk to the creator now and give them, Nintendo generally has not played like that. Versus if this had been something done with a Sega IP character, right? If there was a Sonic-ette or something like that, right? If there was a Robotnik-ette or something like that, I think you certainly would see Sega embrace that and say, hey, can we work something out? That's actually how Sonic Mania came to be. Christian Whitehead, one of the developers of the key developer, right, of Sonic Mania, was one of the ones that actually was, tweaking and tuning and doing ROM hacks of the original Sega games to try to unlock Hidden Palace Zone and things like that. Sega approached him and was like, hey, you're doing pretty good work. You want to do it legally? And they brought him in and he got to do his own Sonic game. And it was one of the best selling Sonic games that Sega's had in like the last decade. Nintendo, right, shuts down entire websites, right, because they have a copy of Super Mario 1 or Donkey Kong, right? So it's just a different thing. So if I'm going to be, I guess, negative about something, it would just be my own concern that maybe Nintendo would see something popular there and go, okay, that's kind of interesting, but we're not going to embrace it. We're going to do our own thing. And then maybe they even go the extreme and say, stop doing what you're doing. We don't want to see that. So, so All right. T-Bone's got a lot of really good stuff in the chat, so I want to make sure to go through some of this and share it. So, um, okay, yeah, he says that Bowserette started from a comic of Princess Peach not marrying Bowser or Mario. So then Bowser wears the crown, power up, and interesting, very very interesting. I think he says it's the gamers who are the cool ones. I have friends that are gamers and friends that are non-gamers. I've seen cool folks in both. I know what you're getting at, though. I know what you're getting at. That traditionally gamers, it used to be that they weren't associated with being cool. I think social media has really changed that a lot. I think the technology coming out, like software and hardware, kind of tech being such a big segment of our economy now, um, and being the bigger paying jobs, generally speaking, I think that has given gamers and geeks and nerds a lot of retroactive street cred that we did not have before. And I could not be, as somebody that was bullied incessantly and constantly in high school, I cannot be happier now that there's folks, you know, thinking I'm cool that before they wouldn't even talk to me. Now I don't talk to them. Hey, how's it going? Hey, is it, yeah, you didn't know. It's not, no, not happening. Like you should have cared when you thought I was nothing. So I'm not mean to them or rude to them, but I just don't have time to be that superficial. Either you liked me when I was nothing, um, and then we're still friends now. If you meet me like this, that's fine, right? I give everybody a fair shake. But if you had an opportunity to be my friend when I was nothing and I really needed friends, but you weren't, I'm sorry, no take backsies on that. Um, my son likes Fortnite, T-Bone. My son really enjoys Fortnite. Um, and he seems to really enjoy that game. Um, he's got a little bit of contention against PUBG players though. He's never even played PUBG. He's read about it in a couple Game Informers, and suddenly he's like a PUBG expert. So I think each environment kind of has their own little cliques. I try to avoid the cliques all altogether. I think that there's good people to be found in all these different areas. Um, so you said we are hungry for new, not the same, but with a little twist. So we're in agreement there. It says people want new and get something that's not official and attractive makes people want even more and impatient for Nintendo to have something huge. That's it. In a nutshell, that's exactly like what I was saying. I would agree with that. I think that folks are just so starved from something actually new from Nintendo that we're able to convince ourselves that we're happy with remakes. We're actually able to convince ourselves that that Switch Online and being able to have another copy of Mario 3 is like, if you're going to get Switch Online and you don't have a healthy back catalog of Nintendo games, right? T-Bone, maybe for you, Switch Online is a good deal, right? You'll get a whole bunch of really good. The games on Nintendo Switch Online are a good selection of games. It's just I already have all of them, except for River City Ransom. I'd already had and played all of them to death. So I'm waiting for them to actually launch new things. The other thing I don't like about it is that unlike your Wii U or your Wii, when you bought a virtual console game, you had that as long as your console worked and functioned. On the Switch, all those Nintendo Switch Online games, folks, you're just renting the games. If they decide to remove them from the listing, a license expires, or whatever, it's going to disappear out of your library just as fast as it arrived, and there's not going to be anything that you can do about it. I see no way to do a perma purchase on any of these games, which is a real huge bummer, right? Even if it was like $1 a game or something, it might be worth having a game or two if there are ones that I wasn't able to get in physical form. So I would say if you're going to get Nintendo Switch Online, if you don't already have the games and you want to have a way to play them portably, it's a good deal. Just know that it's rental only, so play it when you have the opportunity. Could be gone tomorrow. Cloud save, to me, is the biggest reason. I couldn't believe Nintendo launched the Switch without a way to back up your saves. That was very aggravating to me, especially because it prevented me from getting a warranty repair on my console because I had to choose between keep all my keep over 60 hours of progress in various different games or get working controllers. What gamer wants to make that choice? That's a complete bullshit non-choice. So, but fortunately, you get yourself a subscription to Nintendo Switch. Go with the $20 option. It's the most economical. For $20 for the whole year, ends up being somewhere between $2 to $3 a month. Back up your games. If something happens to your Switch, now you know that you can go ahead, turn it in during the warranty if it's a newer one, and get it back, put all your games back on there and all your saves, and you're good. So I really think that Switch has arrived as a good console. So T-Bone, if you're still on the fence about it, I would absolutely say grab it. It's a good console. It's got a good feature set now, a good selection of games. Hoping that we see something new. I think Bowserette is all about people just being excited to see something truly new in the Mario universe. So, which is something that's been lacking. The closest that we got was Mario Maker. Um, and Mario Maker was good, don't get me wrong, but um, there's definitely some missteps. It was a little more simple, I think, than a lot of us were expecting. I don't think we were expecting to just be able to make one-off levels and then go through them completely at random. I think the sharing features on Super Mario Maker could have been a lot better. I think the feature set could have been a lot better. Really sucks that they didn't have the Super Mario 2, Super Mario USA assets in there. That's kind of a major bummer. Um, Maybe in a remake for the Switch, I think that that would be really really awesome to see Super Mario Maker remastered or deluxe edition with all the extra content that came later, plus the Super Mario 2 assets, and maybe Bowserette. Who knows? That'd be pretty cool. T-Bone says, I remember I had a huge bucket of discs for the Wii, and I just grab a game without knowing what to do. I was young and just sat there bashing buttons. That's when I knew I was going to be a gamer. There's nothing wrong with that. And Wii was probably a little bit easier, right? Because there's only a handful of buttons to bash, right? That's something that's gotten harder for me as I get older and everything, is all these different controller styles, all these different buttons. Like, how many buttons do you need on a controller? Really, depending on the game, I can understand it sometimes, but and then they started putting the motion controls in there, and it's like, do I swing it? Do I swipe it? What do I don't even know what to do. So if I put down a game and then I come back like a couple months later, I basically have to relearn all over again how to play the game. One of the things that I love about Nintendo is years later, you pick it up, run, jump, fireball. Like it's super easy, right? There's no like, oh crap, how did I jump again? Right? A button, right? So, um, so yeah. So folks, I hope I was true to my word. All the topics that we said that we were talking about, we were going to talk about. T-Bone, I haven't seen you in the chat before, and I think you're brand new. I noticed that you subscribed. I hope. What did you think of the show so far? Did you like it? You think you'll come back? Think you'll recommend it to some friends? I hope that you really, had a good time. And what would you like to see in a follow-up show? What kind of games would you are new? Well, welcome aboard, my friend. Normally the chat is a lot more jumping. Sometimes we'll have G to the next level in there. We'll have Phaser Co. We have Robert Walker. There's a whole bunch of folks that are regulars. Tonight, I don't know, maybe the ice cream shop or something was. They're all sharing Bowserette images. Must be. They're all watching Bowserette stuff. No, actually, G. If you're watching or listening, my friend, G to the next level had some issues with his back, so he was down. He wasn't able to stream all last week, and he's on the mend now. So he's going to be working on a video. I think he's going to be talking about Mega Man: The Wily Wars for the Sega Genesis. He's going to be talking about Mega Man for the Sega Game Gear. So he's going to be doing a couple videos on that on his channel, G to the next level. So you can find him on Twitter, and I'll be back next week. T-Bone says, yeah, it's great. Maybe next week talk about some more trending concepts. T-Bone, if you're not following me on Twitter, give me a follow on Twitter. I'll share stuff, different topics, and give different questions and stuff like that from time to time. Feel free to just send me a tweet, send me a message, and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?" Put a comment on one of our previous videos. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then we can work it into the show. So I always try to make sure that if the fans ask for it, the fans get it. That's actually how I ended up with the Atari Jaguar. Somebody said you should do an episode about the Jaguar, and so I actually bought an Atari Jaguar and unboxed it on the show. I'll have to get around doing some gameplay videos, but folks ask, and I try to deliver. So, good luck with school and football. So I hope that you have some fun. It's really cool that you're a gamer and that you're into sports. I'm a real fan of balance, and so one of the things I do kind of regret is that I wish I had been able to get along with my peers a little bit better when I was in school, because I did want to play sports and I did want to do things, but the thing was I wasn't really like good at sports, and I wasn't good at sports because nobody really included me. Nobody picked. I was always the last guy that got picked, and it was always like super reluctant. And I was always put off someplace on the team where like they hope, oh, put him over there in the outfield and hope the ball never goes over there. Put him over there, in this game and hope that nothing goes his way. I'd be wide open. They'd throw to like the same two people on like a 6-person team would throw the ball to each other the entire game, and then they'd pat each other and brag, in the locker room about how awesome the game was and how great they did. And it's like all I did was stand there, running you know, from place to place, and then stand there like, what the hell, when somebody jumped literally from my own team, jumped in front of me to make a catch that I was there poised to try to make. How do you get good if you never get a chance? So that's my rant, I guess, for the day. I usually do a rant on the show, but usually it's not about my personal life. It's about a game or something. But so yeah, so I think that if I had opportunities, like now as an adult, like I play catch with my son and do all this stuff, and I'm not an Olympian, but I'm a lot more coordinated than I ever thought I was. And it's just kind of like I could have actually done better and actually been more participatory in sports if I'd just been given a chance. I think, um, because I didn't have a lot in common with them. I was a gamer. They did sports. I was kind of obsessed with gaming. They were obsessed with sports. I think had they been a little bit more into gaming, and had I been a little bit more into sports, we probably would have found common ground, and I would be a more well-rounded individual. You'd see maybe, baseball and football, posters and trophies kind of mixed in with the video games and stuff. I'd be a more well-rounded individual, I guess is my point. So you, my friend, you're part of a much better generation than the one that I grew up with. You obviously like games, video games, and you obviously like sports. So I wish you luck in both of those, and I encourage you to do what you can to try to, identify those people maybe that need a chance, need an opportunity, need a friend, and maybe try to bridge that divide and see if you can be the guy that kind of includes them, that inspires them. I understand on a team, like if you're playing like you know, if you're doing away games and all that other stuff, I understand that there's a certain amount of team that you need to let the good people in, right? And not everybody, maybe I never would have been able to make the team, but there's no reason why in gym class I couldn't have been more included in the games. And that's really, I guess, what I was referring to is when gym, the public gaming space and that kind of stuff, whether it's physical games with sports or gaming on consoles, I don't see any reason why we can't be inclusive, why we can't, kind of have that be an enjoyable moment that we share with everybody. Not everybody has to be a pro if you're just having a friendly game of football. Not every game of football or baseball or Smash Brothers needs to be played like your life and death depends on it, right? If we're not having fun, why are we doing it? So that's all I guess I'm saying. So you're a fan of Overwatch? That's pretty cool. And you're a football captain. That is awesome. That is really cool. That's really cool. You know who else is an Overwatch fan? Um, um, John Ledger, the CEO of T-Mobile, is a huge Overwatch fan, and I've been trying to get him on the show for a while. I haven't had luck yet, but I'm gonna keep trying. So keep your eyes tuned. Maybe one of these days I'll convince him, John, if you're watching, man, love to have you on the show. You could advertise your Slow Cooker Sunday. He's got a cooking show. The CEO of T-Mobile has weigh him. Yeah, John Ledger, the CEO of T-Mobile. If you follow him on Twitter, every now and then you'll see him make a post about Overwatch, or you'll see him get really excited when a new DLC or something or a tournament comes out. He likes Game Boy, and he likes Overwatch. So yeah, super, nerds and geeks. We're running the world now. So there's definitely no shame in being a gamer, no shame in being in sports either. I know a bunch of folks, that were involved in sports that are really good people, that are decent people. And I've known some that were jerks. I've also known gamers that were good people, decent people, and some that are jerks. There's a mix of that, I think, in every group. I try to not be one of them, one of the jerks. I try to be one of the better people. So thanks, T-Bone, for hanging out with us. Good luck with football and school, and good luck with Overwatch. Hope I see you near the top of the leaderboards there. I'm going to sign off for the night. And if you guys got ideas for topics, folks that come in after the show, after we've been live, leave a message down in the live chat and share your ideas for topics with us. Let me know what games you're playing. What games have you picked up lately, or are you really excited about? How do you feel about Bowserette, right? Try to keep it clean in the comments. It's okay to disagree with anything that I said. Just try to be civil about it. All right.